Ellie Hart had never liked thunderstorms. Even as a kid, she would lie awake and count the seconds between lightning and thunder, trying to convince herself that the numbers meant something. If she could measure it, she could control it. If she could name it, it would not be as scary. Now, at 32, in a small rental house with faded yellow shutters and a crooked mailbox, she stood at the back door watching the sky bruise purple and gray. The wind pushed against the old wooden fence, rattling the loose boards. Rain tapped on the glass in fast, uneven patterns. "Luna, you okay, baby?" she called. Luna, her fluffy white rescue dog with one blue eye and one brown, paced nervously in the kitchen. Her nails clicked against the tile as she moved. Every rumble of thunder made her flinch. Ellie bent down and scratched behind Luna's ears. "I know, I do not like it either," she murmured. "We are safe, though. Just noise, just a storm." She checked the back door again, making sure it was latched. The backyard was small but cozy, with a few potted plants that she had not quite figured out how to keep alive. The fence was old, but it had held fine since she moved in 3 months ago. 3 months. 3 months since she packed up the last box from the city apartment she had shared with a man who no longer loved her. 3 months since she decided that starting over in a small town was better than shrinking inside a familiar one. She poured herself a mug of tea and tried to settle back at her makeshift desk at the kitchen table, laptop open to a half-finished logo design. Freelance graphic design was flexible. It paid the bills. It also meant that when her mind wandered, there was nobody to call her back except herself. The thunder cracked louder this time, closer. The power flickered for a second. Luna whined, then trotted nervously toward the back door. "It is all right. You want to look?" She opened the door just a little so Luna could sniff. The rain blew in on a cool gust of air, smelling like wet concrete and cut grass. Luna stood in the doorway, ears perked, tail tucked, taking it all in. Another flash of lightning brightened the sky. Thunder rolled immediately after, loud and sharp. Luna bolted. "Luna!" Ellie shouted, but the dog had already darted past her and out into the yard. Ellie yanked the door open all the way and ran out in her socks, heart pounding. Rain soaked her hair and shirt in seconds. The wind shoved at her, cold and urgent. She saw Luna sprint toward the right side of the yard, where one of the old fence boards was pushed out just slightly. "Luna, stop!" The board, already loose from years of storms, gave way as Luna squeezed through. Ellie heard the dull crack of old wood and watched, helpless, as her dog disappeared into the darkness beyond the fence. For a heartbeat, everything went quiet inside Ellie, like someone had turned the volume of her life all the way down. Then sound crashed back in. Rain, thunder, her own breathing, fast and shallow. "No, no," she whispered. She scrambled back into the house, slipped once on the wet tile, caught herself, and grabbed her keys and phone with shaking hands. Her printer sat on the side table, still loaded with pages she had printed weeks ago, more of a nervous habit than a plan. "Missing dog" was printed in bold at the top, with a photo of Luna's mismatched eyes and a phone number underneath. Ellie had made the flyer one night after seeing a lost cat poster on her street. She had whispered, "just in case," then felt silly for even printing them. Now she scooped the whole stack into her arms. "You are coming home," she muttered, more to herself than to Luna. She shoved her feet into sneakers without socks and raced out the front door. The street looked different in the storm. Trees swayed as if arguing with the wind. Porch lights created soft halos in the rain. The air felt thick and full of motion. Ellie started with the houses closest to her. She jogged to the first porch and knocked, trying to smooth the ruined flyer with her hands. A middle-aged woman in a robe opened the door a crack, peeking out with tired eyes. Hi, I am so sorry to bother you, Ellie said quickly. My dog just got out. Her name is Luna. She is white, medium size, one blue eye and one brown. Have you seen her? The woman shook her head sympathetically. No, honey, I have not, but I will keep a lookout. Poor thing, in this weather. Ellie handed her a flyer with damp fingers. Thank you so much. House after house, she repeated the same questions. Some people had seen nothing. A teenage boy in a hoodie shrugged and said he thought he saw a white dog run toward the park like 20 minutes ago, but he was not totally sure. By the time Ellie reached the little brick house with the neat marigold garden, she was soaked through. Her hair clung to her face, her fingers were numb from the rain and the way she clutched the papers. She took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened a moment later. A man stood there, maybe mid-30s, tall and broad-shouldered. His dark hair was a little messy, like he had run his hands through it recently. He wore a worn gray t-shirt splattered with paint and jeans with a tear at one knee. There was a faint smudge of sawdust on his forearm. He looked at her for half a second and seemed to take in everything at once. The soaked hair, the shaking hands, the stack of crumpled flyers. Hey, he said softly. You all right? My dog, Ellie blurted out. She ran out during the storm. Her name is Luna. I have been looking for a while now, and I have not found her, and I do not know where she went. She held up the flyer with trembling fingers. The man stepped out onto the porch, shutting the door halfway behind him. Let me see, he said. He took the flyer carefully like it was something fragile. His eyes scanned the picture, then moved back to her face. I'm Caleb, he said. I do handyman work around the neighborhood. I know the area pretty well. He glanced at the street, then back at her. Where did she get out? My backyard, 2 streets over, the fence on Willow. She must have pushed through a loose board. I did not even know it was loose. Caleb gave a small, reassuring nod. Okay, he said. We can work with that. We? Ellie repeated weakly. I am not letting you search alone out here, he said, as if that were the most obvious thing in the world. Not in this weather, not when you look like you are about to pass out. His mouth curved into a faint, calming smile. Come on, you walk me through where you have already been, and we will make a plan. Ellie felt her throat tighten. She had not realized how close she was to collapsing until someone else stepped in and said, we. You really don't have to, she said. I don't want to take up your night. I mean, we don't even know each other. Caleb shrugged slightly. I know that your dog is missing, he replied. That is enough. The simple kindness in his words loosened something in her chest. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. They started down the street together. The rain had eased into a steady drizzle now, less violent but still present. The storm clouds were breaking apart, leaving streaks of lighter sky in between. As they walked, something shifted between them. The silence no longer felt heavy, it felt shared. Their steps fell into a natural rhythm. Every so often, their shoulders brushed when the sidewalk narrowed, and neither of them moved away too quickly. Ellie realized that for the first time since her breakup, she did not feel completely alone in a crisis. She had not planned on knocking on a stranger's door and finding help, but here she was, walking beside a man who had dropped everything to search for her dog in the rain. The night had started with fear. Now, somewhere inside that fear, a small, fragile sense of safety had started to grow. They were not done searching, but they were no longer searching alone. And that changed everything. The park looked different at night. During the day, it was full of kids on swings, parents with coffee, joggers, and dog walkers. Now, the playground sat quiet, the slides shining with a thin layer of rain. The swings moved slightly in the leftover wind, squeaking softly. Street lamps glowed along the path, creating warm circles of light. Beyond those circles, the shadows seemed thicker, but not as frightening with someone else there. Luna, Ellie called, voice echoing slightly. Luna, baby girl, where are you? Her voice cracked on the last word. Caleb joined in, his tone firm and steady. Luna, he called, come on, girl, time to go home. They walked slowly along the paved path, checking behind benches, near bushes, around the base of trees. The muddy prints they had followed faded as the ground turned to gravel. Storm probably washed some of the tracks away, Caleb said, but she would not go too far from food and shelter. The park connects to the trail and the neighborhood on the other side. We will check both if we have to. Ellie clutched Luna's leash in one hand and her phone in the other. She thought about calling someone, but there was no one in her contacts who lived here yet. Her friends from the city would listen and worry, but they could not stand beside her in the dark park. Caleb could. "Do you always help strangers like this?" she asked softly as they passed the small gazebo in the center of the park. Caleb glanced at her, then up at the drizzle that was starting again. "Not always," he said, "but I do try not to ignore people who look like they are about to fall apart." Ellie snorted quietly at that, even as her eyes stung. "That obvious?" she asked. "A little," he replied, a teasing smile tugging at his mouth. "But in a brave way." "I do not feel brave," Ellie admitted. "I feel like my insides are shaking." "Bravery is not the absence of shaking," Caleb said. "It is what you do while you are shaking." She stared at him for a second, taken aback by how easily his words landed in the deep, sore parts of her. "That sounded very wise," she said. He gave a half shrug. "I had a lot of long nights after Nora died," he said quietly. "You think a lot when the house is too quiet. Either you drown in your thoughts, or you turn them into something that helps you move." They reached the gazebo and paused as another light burst of rain pushed them under the shelter. The wooden roof amplified the soft patter of the drops. It felt like being inside a drum, a steady rhythm around them. For a moment, neither spoke. Ellie sank onto the wooden bench and leaned forward, elbows on her knees, fingers pressed against her forehead. "I keep thinking this is my fault," she said after a long pause. "If I had checked the fence, if I had not opened the door, if I had held onto her a little tighter." Caleb sat down beside her, leaving a respectful space between them. "I get it," he said. "I have played that game too. What if I had done this or that, or called sooner, or said something different? You can yank yourself through every version of the past, and it will not give you back what you lost. It just steals what you still have." Ellie closed her eyes. The ache in her chest loosened again, just a little. "I have lost a lot," she whispered. "Not like you did with your sister, but still. I lost a relationship I thought would last. I lost a sense of who I was. Moving here, it felt like starting from zero. Luna is the first thing that made this place feel like a home instead of a punishment. I cannot lose her, too." Caleb looked at her, his expression soft. "You did not start from zero," he said. "You started from experience. It just feels like zero because you don't recognize yourself yet." His words surprised her again. "You don't talk like a handyman," she said faintly. He chuckled at that. "Well, I fix a lot of things," he said. "Sometimes that includes leaky sinks. Sometimes that includes neighbors who forgot they are stronger than they feel." Ellie let out a small laugh that sounded like a sigh. "You don't talk like a stranger," she admitted. "Maybe that is because I don't feel like one anymore," he replied softly. The quiet that followed did not feel empty. It felt full of shared pain, shared understanding, shared hope. Caleb stood and stretched his arms. "All right," he said. "Rain is letting up again. Ready to keep going?" Ellie nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. She stood and took a steadying breath. "Yes," she said, "let us keep going." They walked through the rest of the park, calling Luna's name, checking behind trash bins and near the edges of the trees. At one point, a small shape darted across the path, and Ellie's heart leaped, but it was only a raccoon, offended by the interruption. On the far side of the park, they reached an area where the path turned to dirt and sloped down slightly, eventually leading toward a creek that usually ran shallow, except after heavy rain. "Sometimes dogs like to explore near water," Caleb said. "We will check the entrance to the trail, but stay out of the deeper parts. It can get slippery." As they moved closer to the trail entrance, Ellie's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced down. It was an unknown number. "Saw your flyer. think I saw a white dog near Oakwood and Miller about an hour ago. Might have headed toward the creek. Her heart raced. Someone texted, she said. They think they saw her near Oakwood and Miller. That's close, right? Yeah, Caleb said. That's just a little ways from here. He nodded down the path. Trail leads in that direction. The creek curves that way too. She might have followed the water line. Ellie shoved the phone back into her pocket. Then that is where we're going, she said firmly. Caleb glanced at her with a small, impressive smile. There's the brave you were talking about not feeling, he said. She rolled her eyes, but she smiled. As they walked, Caleb let out a sharp whistle, loud and clear. The sound echoed through the trees. Wow, she said. Do that again. He whistled once more, long and controlled. How do you even do that? She asked, genuinely curious. He demonstrated, shaping his lips and tongue. You try, he encouraged. She took a deep breath and attempted it. What came out was a breathy, confused puff of air. Caleb laughed, a real, full sound that made his eyes crinkle. Okay, he said, that was terrible, but impressive effort. Ellie laughed too, which felt almost wrong in the middle of her fear. But it also felt like a relief, like air flowing through a window that had been jammed shut. She tried again, producing something marginally louder, but still not close to a true whistle. Better, he said encouragingly. We will get you there. I am not sure Luna would respond to that anyway, Ellie said with a grin. She would probably think it was a new kind of sneeze. They shared a quiet smile. And for a moment, the world around them, with its wet leaves and distant thunder, felt lighter. As they reached the bottom of a small hill, Ellie spotted something near a fence that lined the outer edge of the park. Wait, she said, moving ahead a few steps. A small red object hung from a bent wire on the fence. Her heart sank before her brain fully registered what it was. Luna's collar, she whispered. She grabbed it with trembling hands. The tag clinked softly as it swung. Caleb caught up to her, his face serious. Let me see, he said. She handed the collar to him like she was handing over a piece of her own heart. It must have snapped here, he said. She probably squeezed through and it got caught. The good news is she is not trapped by it. It came off. She is still moving. But without a collar, Ellie said, panic rising again. If someone finds her, they won't know where she belongs. She looks like a stray now. Caleb shook his head. Not to you, he said, and not to her. She knows who you are. That matters. He looked her in the eye. We are closer than we were an hour ago. That is progress. Ellie pressed her lips together and nodded, trying to absorb his calm. They sank down onto the small grassy hill for a moment, both needing a short break. Luna's collar sat between them. Can I ask you something? Caleb said after a few quiet seconds. Sure, Ellie replied. Why here? He asked. Of all the towns you could have moved to after your breakup, why this one? Ellie sighed, looking out at the dark line of trees. I did a random search one night, she said. I typed in small towns near water and trees and not too expensive. She smiled a little. This place came up. I saw a picture of the main street with that bakery on the corner and the little bookstore with the crooked sign. And I thought, maybe that is a place where people remember each other's names. Maybe that is a place where I wouldn't feel invisible. Do you still feel invisible? Caleb asked gently. Not right now, she admitted. He nodded, and something unspoken passed between them. Something that felt a lot like understanding. The sky was beginning to shift, just slightly. The darkest blues softened towards something lighter, the hint of an approaching dawn that was still far away, but coming. Caleb stood and offered his hand. Come on, he said. We are not done yet. We are close. I can feel it. Ellie slid her hand in his. His palm was warm and solid. He pulled her gently to her feet. They followed the faint outline of the trail entrance, moving carefully. Trees lined the path, dripping water onto the ground. The air grew cooler near the creek, where the water collected and flowed in a slow, steady line. They called Luna's name again, over and over, their voices echoing against the quiet night. With every step, Ellie's fear and hope twisted together. She was exhausted, soaked, and emotionally raw. She was also more determined than she had been in a long time. Not just to find Luna, but to stop running from her own life. What she did not know yet was that she was not just searching for a missing dog. She was walking through the first chapter of something new, something unexpected. The first hint of dawn arrived slowly. At first, it was just a slight change in the color of the sky beyond the trees. The black shifted toward deep navy, then toward something softer. Birds began to rustle quietly in the branches above, shaking off the last of the rain. The creek beside the trail murmured as it moved, fuller than usual from the storm. Ellie and Caleb walked along the path, shoes squishing in the damp earth. Their steps had slowed, not from giving up, but from conserving the last of their energy. They had been searching for hours. "Luna," Ellie called again, her voice hoarse. "Luna, baby, where are you?" "Luna," Caleb added, his voice carrying farther. A few moments passed. Nothing. Ellie's stomach twisted. "What if she is hurt?" she whispered, almost afraid to voice the fear out loud. "What if she fell in the creek? What if she is stuck somewhere and we walked right past her?" Caleb stopped and turned to face her. "Look at me," he said. She did. His eyes were steady, even though his hair was damp and his dark t-shirt clung to his shoulders. "You have done everything right tonight," he said. "You printed flyers, you knocked on doors, you followed leads, you did not give up. You did not sit at home hoping someone else would fix it. That is what Luna has from you. That kind of love does not just disappear. Dogs feel that. They find their way back to it." Ellie swallowed. "Do you really believe that?" she asked. "I do," he said. "I would not say it if I did not." She nodded slowly, letting his certainty soak into the cracks of her fear. They walked a little farther, the ground sloping gently down toward a wider part of the creek where the water slowed and fanned out into a small, calm pool. And then they heard it. A soft, familiar sound. A whine, almost like a question. Ellie stopped so fast that Caleb nearly bumped into her. "Did you—" she started. He held up a hand. They listened. There it was again, a small, high-pitched whine, followed by a single quick bark. "Luna," Ellie breathed. She broke into a run, feet pounding against the wet earth. Branches brushed her arms. Her heart hammered in her ears, drowning out almost everything else. "Ellie, careful," Caleb called behind her, but he was running too. They rounded a bend in the trail, and the ground opened up to reveal the creek more fully. On the opposite bank, near the water's edge, sat a small, muddy white dog with mismatched eyes and a very familiar face. "Luna!" Ellie screamed. Luna's head snapped up. Her tail started wagging so hard that her whole body wiggled. She barked happily and scrambled up the bank, slipping once in the mud before regaining her footing. She sprinted toward them, ears flopping, tongue lolling out. Ellie dropped to her knees as Luna collided with her, paws on her chest, wet fur pressing into her neck. "Oh my God," Ellie sobbed, hugging her as tightly as she dared. "You scared me so bad. You scared me so, so bad." Luna licked her face enthusiastically, whining and wiggling all at once. Caleb stood a few feet away, watching with a soft smile. Relief washed over his features like sunlight breaking through clouds. "She looks good," he said, gently, "muddy but good." Ellie laughed and cried at the same time. "She is perfect," she said, voice shaking. "She is absolutely perfect." Luna turned to Caleb and trotted over, sniffing his hand, tail still wagging. He crouched and let her lick his fingers. "Hey there, troublemaker," he said fondly. "You had us all over town tonight." Luna nudged his palm with her nose, as if in apology. "She approves of you," Ellie said, wiping her cheeks. "That is rare. She is picky about people." "Smart dog," Caleb replied, giving Luna one last scratch before standing. They started the walk back toward the neighborhood, moving more slowly now. Dawn had almost fully arrived, painting the sky with pale pink and gold. The storm was nothing but distant memory in the clouds. Luna trotted happily between them, occasionally veering off to sniff something and then returning to Ellie's side as if to reassure herself that this was real. Thank you, Ellie said quietly after a few minutes. I know I have said it already, but I need you to know I mean it. You could have closed your door tonight. You could have said, "Not my problem." You did not. Caleb glanced at her. You did not either, he said. You could have given up when it got hard. You did not. You kept going. You showed up for her. That is not nothing. She looked at him, really looked. The tired eyes, the gentle strength in his expression, the way he carried himself like someone who had seen enough pain to know how to handle other people's pain. You said your sister would have liked me, Ellie said. Tell me about her, if you want to. He took a breath. Nora was the brave one, he said. She moved away first, tried new things, took chances. She loved this town because it made her feel like she could breathe. She used to volunteer at the animal shelter. She would send me pictures of every dog she walked, every cat she cuddled. He smiled a little. She always told me I worried too much about what could go wrong. She would have loved tonight, actually, not the part where Luna went missing, but the part where a bunch of neighbors looked out for each other. She believed in that. Ellie listened, feeling the weight and warmth of his memories. How did she die? She asked gently. Car accident, he said, a few years ago. One of those things that makes no sense no matter how you spin it. After that, I kept thinking about what she would have wanted me to do with the time she didn't get to use. Sitting in my old life did not feel right anymore. So I came here. I filled my days fixing things and my nights talking to the ceiling until I figured out how to talk to people again. He paused, then offered a small, wry smile. Tonight feels like something she would have nudged me into, he added. She would have said, "Get off your couch and help that girl find her dog, stubborn man." Ellie laughed softly through the last of her tears. I am glad she did, she said. They reached the edge of the park, then the quiet residential street that led back to Ellie's house. The neighborhood looked softer in the morning light. A few porch lights snapped off as the sun strengthened. Luna trotted ahead, then back, almost like she was guiding them home. As they walked up Ellie's front path, she glanced at the house from a new angle. Earlier, it had felt small and temporary. Now, with Luna at her side and a new memory stitched into the walls, it felt more like the beginning of something. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, Luna rushing past her to shake off the last of the mud on the tile. Of course, Ellie said, laughing, right on the clean floor, perfect timing, as always. Caleb lingered in the doorway, one hand resting lightly on the frame. Well, he said, mission accomplished. Ellie turned to face him. You're just going to leave now? She asked, half teasing, half genuinely disappointed. He looked a little unsure. I figured you might want to rest, he said. You've had a long night, and I probably smell like wet lumber. You smell like a hero, she said, before her brain could catch up to her mouth. Both of them went quiet for a second. Heat crept into Ellie's cheeks. Caleb's eyes flicked briefly to the floor, then back up to her, a shy smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Well, he said lightly, I've definitely been called worse. Luna trotted back to him and nudged his leg with her nose. He bent down automatically, scratching behind her ears. You're playing matchmaker now, huh? He murmured to the dog. Ellie laughed, nervous but genuine. Listen, she said, her heart pounding. I know this is sudden, and we technically met in the middle of a crisis, but you have been walking around in my night for hours now, listening to me overshare about my life and my dog and my broken fence. The least I can do is offer you breakfast. He raised an eyebrow. Breakfast? Yeah, she said. I make good pancakes. It is pretty much the only thing I can guarantee will come out right. She hesitated, then added, and honestly, I am not ready for this night to just end with a bye, thanks, see you never. His face softened at that. I am not ready for that either, he admitted. Then stay, she said. No pressure, no expectations, just pancakes and coffee, and maybe a few less heavy topics. He chuckled. I cannot promise I will not accidentally say something deep, he said. It seems to happen. She smiled. I will risk it. He stepped fully into the house, closing the door gently behind him. The kitchen smelled faintly of old coffee and rain.
Ellie set Luna's blanket near the back door and filled her water bowl. Luna drank like she had not seen water in days, then curled up on the blanket with a contented sigh. As Ellie pulled out ingredients for pancakes, Caleb leaned against the counter, watching her move around the kitchen. It felt natural, like they had done this before, even though they hadn't. "Do you cook a lot?" he asked. "Not really," she admitted. "Mostly breakfast foods and things that come in a box with instructions. I'm trying to get better. New life, new skills." "You're doing all right to me," he said. She poured batter into the pan, the sizzle filling the quiet. "Can I ask you something else?" she said. "Sure," he replied. "Do you think people get more than one new beginning?" she asked. "Or is there a limit? Like you used up your second chance? That's it?" He considered that for a moment.
"I think every sunrise is a new beginning, whether we notice it or not," he said. "Some are louder and more dramatic than others. Some feel like they come with fireworks. Some are just you deciding to get up and try again. But no, I do not think there is a limit. That sounds like a rule someone made up to keep themselves small." Ellie flipped the pancake, watching it turn golden. "Tonight feels like a beginning," she said quietly. "It does," he agreed. She glanced at him. "For you too?" she asked. He met her eyes. "For me too," he said. They ate at the small kitchen table, the one that had held her laptop and sketchbooks and too many quiet dinners for one. Now it held 2 plates, 2 mugs, and a dog sleeping at their feet. They talked about little things, favorite movies, the best place in town to get pie, how Caleb once tried to install a ceiling fan and almost knocked himself out, how Ellie once spent 20 minutes talking to a stranger at the grocery store because she thought they were an old coworker and then realized they were not. They laughed a lot. Ellie noticed that with every story, every shared smile, the weight she had been carrying for months felt lighter. Not gone, not magically erased, just lighter. When breakfast was done and the sun was fully up, Caleb stood reluctantly. "I should probably go clean up," he said. "I have a cabinet door to fix for Mrs. Halpern this afternoon. If she knew I skipped sleep to go on a dog rescue mission, she would insist on baking me a cake." "That sounds terrible," Ellie said dryly. "It would, actually," he replied. "She puts raisins in everything." Ellie walked him to the door, Luna trotting beside them. "Thank you again," she said, "for everything." He shrugged a little, but his eyes were warm. "Thank you for knocking on my door," he said. "I was starting to think my night would just be me and an old movie I have seen 10 times." She chewed her lip, then took a breath. "Would you want to do this again sometime? Not the running around in the rain part, the talking, the pancakes, the feeling like maybe new beginnings are possible?" He smiled slowly, the kind of smile that starts in the eyes and then reaches the mouth. "Yeah," he said, "I would like that." She nodded, trying not to grin too widely. "Good," she said. "I will, text you. Or you can text me. My number is on about 20 flyers around town now." He laughed. "Lucky for me," he said. He stepped out onto the porch, then turned back. "Get some sleep," he added. "You earned it." "You too," she said. He walked down the path and along the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed. Ellie watched until he turned the corner, then closed the door gently and leaned her forehead against it. Luna patted over and nudged her leg. Ellie looked down at her. "You had quite a night," she said. "Ran away, rolled in the mud, orchestrated a meet cute. That is a lot, even for you." Luna wagged her tail. Ellie scooped her up, hugging her close. "Do you know what I think?" she murmured. "I think we were looking for you, but maybe we also needed to find something else. A reminder that life is not done being kind to us, that not every storm ends with loss." She carried Luna to the couch and sank down, finally letting her body relax. Outside, the world moved on. Cars started. People stepped out to get their morning paper. The leftover puddles reflected the brightening sky.
Inside, in a small yellow-shuttered house on a quiet street, a woman who thought she had used up all her fresh starts, and a dog who refused to stay lost, began a new chapter. There would be more storms, more hard days, more decisions to make. But there would also be pancakes and shared smiles, and a man who knew how to fix things, including broken confidence. Sometimes, life hid its best beginnings in the middle of nights that felt like endings. Sometimes, love started with a lost dog. And sometimes, while you were looking for what you thought you could not live without, you stumbled into someone who would help you remember how to truly live. While they looked for Luna, they found a path back to themselves. And they were only just getting started.